Come on. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you again for being patient with us with the last technical difficulty laden curriculum preview. So, welcome to Mr. Bogdan's science class. And the main thing I really want to stress in this video is how to help your child, because that is the number one question that I get every year. How can I help my student in science? So, uh, to give you a preview of what we are going to be doing this year, right now in the first quarter, we are going to be looking at matter and motion of matter, particularly on a atomic level. In the second quarter, that will transfer over into energy and transfer of energy, conservation of energy. And towards the end, we will do a bit on distance, time, and speed graphing. The third quarter is all about cells and the inner workings of cells and how the parts of cells all work together. And then in the fourth quarter, rocks, minerals, and soil. So every week, it always begins with the weekly guide. And I've been working with the students about always going to the weekly guide. The weekly guide can be found in Google Classroom and as a link in the Blue Team S'mores weekly guide. So anybody can look at the weekly guide. You can sit down with your student and say, okay, today's Monday, what are we going to do? Today's Tuesday, what do you need to do? I always tell the students, go to the weekly guide, find that day, do those activities. So we having to be very flexible this year, been working with the students of no matter where anybody is, whatever combination there is, always go to the weekly guide. So if I'm at school and the students are at school, well, they go to the weekly guide and they do those activities. If the student is at home and Mr. Bogdan is at school, well, you can go to the weekly guide and do the activities. Sometimes I'm going to be stuck at home and the students are going to be at school. Well, they go to the weekly guide and they do those activities. And then if everybody's at home, well, guess what? We go to the weekly guide and we find that day and we do those activities. So the big thing every week is that there is a quiz for every week. I have broken the curriculum of the year into 1 week segments, and each week we have a quiz on just that week. I do not do any sort of big, long, end of unit, cumulative or summative tests, or no big chapter tests or anything like that. The only assessments they have are short quizzes every Friday and on just that week's material. The quizzes are going to be about the content that week, and within that content will be some vocabulary words. So the vocabulary words that they really need to focus on, well, guess what? They're listed on the weekly guide. And the content is done through all the activities that week. So the quiz is going to be about what we learned that week, and embedded within that is some vocabulary. To help the students, they can help themselves, and you can help your student by working together on the practice quiz. On every weekly guide, there is a link to a practice quiz. The practice quiz has a very direct correlation to the quiz on Friday. I think for every question on the quiz, there are 2 questions on the practice quiz that cover that content. Usually all I do is I change a diagram or a picture or something like that. So the practice quiz questions are very, very correlated to the actual questions that they're going to see. The big running theme for me is that I just don't do surprises. So let me move that. There we go. All right. So the practice quiz is self-grading and offers the students their score. And this is the most important part. This is where, how can I help my student? It's in the feedback on the practice quiz. So the students are going to take the practice quiz and submit the results, and immediately they will see their score. They will be able to see every question, what they answered for every question, what the real answer was, whether they got it right or wrong, and for every question, there is an explanation. On the practice quiz, it's actually titled feedback, but that's basically the explanation. So how do I help my student? You look at the practice quiz with them and go over the feedback with them. The students can do this practice quiz as early as they want in the week and as often as they want on the week. And what I had students do last week was they took the practice quiz and they got like 8 out of 10. And so they went through and they read the feedback. Then they went back and then they did the practice quiz again, and their score went from like an 8 out of 10 to 16 out of 8 out of 20 to 16 out of 20. And then they were able to read the feedback on just the four that they missed, relearn that content, and go back and take it again. Um, if a student does the practice quiz enough, they're going to just memorize the answers. And so that is why it is very, very important to read the feedback. The students need to be able to say the because, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit. All right, let me move this back down. All right, so in looking at the uh, weekly guide and the practice quiz. So here on Monday, we can see that we have these four words in bold. These are the definitions that are going to be used on that week's quiz. And to find the definitions, what they really need to know, right over here is a link to all of the definitions that they need to know. So when they open up this vocabulary list and the definitions, they need to find the words that are listed here in bold and just make sure that they are familiar with those. All right, so here on the Wednesday of a weekly guide, you can see right there circled is practice quiz. This is the link that they need to click to access the practice quiz. Now, here's an example. One of the words that was in bold on the couple screens ago was the word element. And so here is a practice quiz question. Which one of these is an element? They need to know the definition of the word element to answer this. Now, what they're supposed to know is that an element is composed of only one type of atom. And on diagrams, every time they change colors, it's a new type or element. So there's only one picture out of these four that all the atoms are the same type. And so they should pick option one. Now, if they didn't know that, whether they got this right or wrong on the practice quiz, here is the feedback. So this is the scientific explanation. And so here I'm reminding students elements contain only one type of atom, which in diagrams is one color. So if they did know that or they didn't know that, they're going to see this feedback and learn that. Students should be, when they take the practice quiz, be focusing on the feedback, not just memorizing the answers on the practice quiz. So back to that main idea. How do I help my student in science? When they go over the practice quiz, and if you want to go over the practice quiz with them, they need to be able to give this type of scientific explanation for every question. So here is the real quiz for that concept. All I did was change the diagrams. So if the students learned the scientific rule that elements have only one type of atom, and in diagrams, every time you change color, it's a new element, there's only one possible answer, and that's this one right here. That's pretty much how I work. If you know the rule that's listed in the feedback and you do that, there is a direct correlation between the practice quiz and the real quiz. You should be able to answer every question. So, how to help your child? Most studying is going to be done here at school. If you look at the weekly guide, guaranteed on Thursdays is going to be just a whole bunch of time dedicated to the students going over the practice quiz in class, and that also allows them to personally check in with me on anything that they don't get right away. But if you want to help your child, go through the practice quiz together, and this is the most important part: make your child state what I call the because, the reason why, the scientific reason why. So a student should be able to look at any quiz, practice quiz question and say to you, the parent, well, the answer is this one because the rule is that protons have a positive charge, or The answer is this one because the mitochondria is providing energy for a cell. They should be able to give a scientific reasoning for every answer that they pick. If they say it's this one and I just know it is, that's not a good scientific explanation. Or the answer is this one because it just is. That's not a scientific explanation. So, you know that your student is ready when they can give the reasoning for every practice quiz question. Then, after the students all take the quiz, I email the students their results, and you can do the same thing you did with the practice quiz. You can go in and see your child's quiz grade, what answer they picked for every question, whether they got every question right or wrong, and there's also feedback on the regular quiz as well. And that is my segment. Thank you very much for listening.